Hello, everyone, and welcome to Miss Dub's Period 4 screencast. Tonight we are going to be doing a close reading of A Doll's House, Act 3. Remember, a close reading is where we take select passages and we look at them individually, but within the context of the play, and see how these individual passages of the text impact our understanding of the text as a whole. We just finished Act 3 in class today. Props to our actors, they were fantastic. Today we're going to talk about a couple of different literary devices and then put on our feminist lens to read a couple of passages really quickly to see how using that feminist lens changes our view of what is going on in the story. Right, so please have out your text and some highlighters and pens, maybe in different colors. If you're not comfortable writing on the text, get another piece of paper and jot down notes because we're going to be pausing and asking questions and marking up the text as we go. All right, let's dive on in. So the first thing we're going to look at is a metaphor that comes up in Act 3 on page 89. This is a conversation between Krogstad and Mrs. Linden. So Krogstad begins with, "When I had lost you, the very ground seemed to sink from under my feet." And here's where it gets interesting. He says, "Look at me now. I'm a shipwrecked man clinging to a spar." Remember we talked about in class, a spar is just a piece of wood from a ship. So like one of those big things that holds up the sails, keeps the ship, from tipping over, things like that. So he is a shipwrecked man who is clinging to a piece of wood from his ship. Mrs. Linden replies, "Rescue may be at hand." All right, so she's saying, oh look, it's not all hope is lost. There's some rescue that can come your way. And then Krogstad replies, "It was at hand, but then you stood in my way." We've got a little bit of accusational language going on here. Maybe Mrs. Linden really is the cause of his shipwreck. Right, so the next page, they continue this metaphor. They continue talking to each other in word pictures. Right, a metaphor is something to help visualize a concept. We talk about something else in order to understand what is going on in the moment. Right, Mrs. Linden says, "You said you were a shipwrecked man." Can we see it again? Shipwrecked man clinging to a spar. He replies, "I have good reason to say so." Right? What he's saying has merit. Then Mrs. Linden replies with a counter metaphor, or maybe a continuation of the same one. She says, "I am a shipwrecked woman." Right? So she's taking this metaphor that he used and she's using it on herself. She's relating him to her in this way. Clinging to a spar. Same language. They've repeated this 3 times now. This must be kind of a thing with them. Right? I have no one to care for. So that is her loss, that she has no one to care for in life. So her ship is wrecked. He says, "You made your own choice. I had no choice. Well, what then?" Here's where it gets interesting. "How if we two shipwrecked people could join hands?" What? "Suppose we lash the spars together." All right, so what is going on here? Right, like we know from earlier in the story that these two have a history, right? They almost got married. There was a little bit of romantic tension going on there, and now they are talking to each other like they are seafarers who have been wrecked on a ship. What does that mean? All right, so first of all, we have one shipwrecked man, right? We have a shipwrecked dude. His life was ruined. All right, he's floating along by himself. And then she comes back and she says, "Oh, hey, you're a shipwrecked man. I am a shipwrecked woman." Here she is, also clinging to a spar. So she is making this picture of both of them out in the ocean separately, hanging on to a piece of wood. Looks like he's surfing right there. All right, trying to survive. So right now, they're both in kind of a terrible place, all alone out in the ocean. And then she says, "What if we two shipwrecked people could join hands?" All right, and he doesn't quite get it. And she says, "Suppose we lashed the spars together." So what she's saying in her word picture here is, what if we took your spar right here and my spar right here, and then we tied them together. So then there's one big spar. And then she makes this image of the two of them holding hands. It's really cute and intimate. They're here holding hands. All right, so this is this word picture that she and Krogstad make with their metaphors. Whoa! My goodness, where did it all go? There we go. Whew. And, okay, I have a couple of questions for you guys. So after you see these questions, please pause the video and take some time to write down your response. So again, we have a definition of a spar. All right, and the question is, what is Mrs. Linden trying to tell Krogstad using this metaphor, this word picture? And why do you think she's using this type of language rather than talking straight to him? Why is she using all these pictures and images instead of just saying what she wants to say? So go ahead and take a pause, write down your... All right, thank you for responding. Our next piece of literary terminology that we're going to look at is a simile. A simile, remember, is where we use like or as. Oh, I'm way too short for this board. To compare one thing to another. So in this passage, we have Nora and her husband, Helmer, talking to each other. And Helmer says, oh, how lovely, how cozy our home is, blah, blah, blah. Our house is so wonderful. Here you are, safe. Whew. Here I can shelter you. This is where our simile starts coming in. He says, here I can shelter you like a hunted dove. What does that mean? Whom I have saved from the claws of the hawk. All right, so we know that this is a simile instead of a metaphor because we have this word right here, this like. He's comparing her to something. He's comparing her to a hunted dove. All right, and remember, we talked about this just briefly in class, but a dove is seen as kind of a helpless type of bird. They're vegetarian, well, except for bugs, right, Science Ben? Yeah? Science Ben confirms. They are pretty harmless. All right, and then we have the hawk. We have the hawk, who is a predatory bird. It's very dangerous. It's got these big claws. It's out to get the helpless dove. And Helmer is saying that he is going to shelter her. This word shelter, it means he's going to take care of her. He's going to care, protect. Oh, yeah, that word's supposed to be protect. Super. All right, so here are your questions after looking at this specific simile. What does Helmer's use of the simile like a hunted dove show about how he views Nora? When he compares her to a dove, how does that show us how he sees her? Do you think his use of this type of language is endearing? Does it show love and respect and support, or is it demeaning? Does it put her down and make her something less than he is? And then please explain why or why not in that sense. Why is this language endearing, or why is it demeaning? Please explain. All right, your challenge is to look through the rest of Act 3 and find at least one more passage where Helmer talks to or about Nora as if she is a bird. And then in that extra passage that you found, explain how the passage you found compares with this one that we looked at right here. And what does it say, again, about Helmer and Nora's relationship? All right, go ahead and take a pause and answer that question. All right. Next, we're going to take a quick peek at a couple of other passages using a feministic lens. Feminist, I'm going to draw my little magnifying glass here. Feminist lens. Yeah, close enough. That's a magnifying glass because it looks more like a daisy. But the point is, we are looking at this text from the standpoint of people who see men and women as socioeconomically and relationally equal, right? That's what it means to look at something with a feminist lens, to view men and women as equals in situations. All right, so we're going to use that lens and examine these, hopefully, two passages right here. All right, so Helmer, again, is talking to Nora, and he says, but do you think that I love you the less for your helplessness? All right, he's saying, oh, you think that because you're helpless that I love you less? No, no. Says, no, no, that is not the case. All right? Only lean on me. Lean on me, right? He says lean on him, right? That implies that, he is something strong and stable, right? And that she's feeling kind of flimsy. He's strong and stable. She can lean on him. All right, now let's look at the way that he talks about himself. He says, I will counsel and guide you. All right, and then he continues to say, I should be no true man if this very womanly helplessness did not make you more doubly dear in my eyes. All right, so he's strong, he's the one that she leans on. He says that he is there to counsel and guide her. He is wise, he's going to guide her through life. All right, and then he talks about her. Look at how he talks about Nora. We already noted up here, he talks about her helplessness, right? And then he says, I should be no true man if this very womanly, calls her womanly, and again, helpless a second time in the same passage. So he is strong, he's her counselor, he's her guide. She is feminine and helpless. All right, that's what's going on in this passage. All right, now please take a pause and answer these questions. How does Helmer view the roles of husband and wife in a marriage? All right, what does he think the husband should do? What does he think the wife should do? And explain why you, with your feministic lens, agree or disagree with this view of marriage relationships. Go ahead and take a pause, answer that question. All right, here we go. Next part. We're going to breeze on through this. This is the last thing that we're going to look at. This is the conversation that Helmer and Nora have almost at the very end of the play. This is from page 113. Helmer says, was I always to trouble you with the cares you could not help me to bear? Nora is angry at him. He's saying, hey, why would I come and trouble you with the cares that you could not help me to bear? There's no way he's saying that she could bear all of the cares that he has to deal with. Nora replies, I'm not talking of cares. All right? She's changing the language on him. She's like, this right here, this is not what we are talking about. She's saying, I say that we have never yet set ourselves seriously to get into the bottom of anything. All right? So he is talking about cares. She is talking about being serious. All right? She wants to get to the bottom of things. She wants to talk about things that matter. Helmer says, why, my dear Nora, what have you to do with serious things? I'm going to highlight this because this is pretty significant. All right? What have you to do with serious things? He's basically saying to her, you have no business talking about anything serious. There is nothing serious about you as a person. All right? And then Nora replies, there we have it. All right? There lies the rub. This is what's going on. This is the big issue. There we have it. You have never understood me. I have had great injustice done to me, Torvald, first by my father and then by you. He has never understood her. He does not take her seriously. And she says that this is a great injustice that both he and her father have done to her. All right, so let's take a look at these last couple questions. Go ahead and pause the video to answer them. What does Helmer think that Nora doesn't need? Why does Helmer think that Nora doesn't need to talk about serious things? Why is that not an issue that she should be concerned with? What do you think the difference is between cares and being serious in this passage? And what is this great injustice that Nora believes her father and husband have done to her? And is her accusation true? Go ahead and pause the video. Those are some pretty heavy questions. Take a couple minutes to answer them. All right, so now that we've done our close reading, you guys have gone through, answered those loads of questions. It is time to discuss it. All right, so this is where our Twitter chat comes in. Tweet hashtag #AdollsHouseP4 for period 4 to post your answers. So you are going to be posting your answers to 2 of the questions that I post to you in this video. And don't forget to comment on other people's answers. If you see something that you like that you disagree with, make a comment about it. And I will see you in class tomorrow to discuss your posts. Have a good night.